How about that?
Aha, look at this. That's beautiful.
Can you see that?
That's a good segue into getting started right there.
Yeah.
Right.
I must tell you, if you're watching right now, that this is being recorded. It is Open Line Friday. My name is Josh Benoit with EPLAN. We do this webcast series. We've been doing it over a year now. It's called Open Line Friday, and the reason it's called Open Line Friday is you have a chance to ask questions. You can do it in the chat or raise your hand, and we will answer those. And we have a specific topic that we really come in with every week, or not every week that we do this. We do it about every 2 or 3 weeks. But if you have a question, we'd love to be able to answer that for you. So leave your questions. And this week, of course, talking about the data portal and how it works for you. So let me introduce our guest this week. John Walker, you've never been on one of these Open Line Fridays before. You're our business sales manager for the data portal. And you've been here for what? I might be wrong, about 6
Almost
months
6
by
months?
now?
Yeah, 6 months.
Yeah, so tell us about your background and what you did before you came to EPLAN.
Yeah, I've spent my career in automation and mostly in process controls. I was with a company called More Products, who was acquired by Siemens in 2000. So counting the More Products time, I was with Siemens for about 23 years.
Wow.
Mostly in process controls, some in discrete automation. Also had about a 4-year stint where I left Siemens, went to a solution partner of Siemens, an integrator. And then in January, I joined EPLAN as business sales manager for Data Portal. So I currently work with vendors or potential vendors, existing vendors of EPLAN, but also potential vendors of EPLAN to try to convince them to share their data with us so that our EPLAN customers can use that data in their projects.
And we'll talk about more in a few minutes, more about how much this data portal has grown, especially since I've been here. I mean, it's been just an explosion of how much parts data that we have and how many manufacturers and distributors that we're working with at this point. Before we get into all that, though, Ian Underhill, he's our consultant. He's been with us many times before. Right now, he's probably most worried about how Mercedes is gonna come back in F1 and maybe win a race before the end of the season. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but fingers crossed.
Well, yeah, I don't think so. But this
Lewis
weekend
Hamilton was in the poll. Lewis Hamilton was in the poll last week and came in 4th.
Yeah, it's quick over 1 lap, but its race pace sucked. But this week, I'm cheering on Williams, Alex Albon, because they're the historic team. They've been the Nigel Mansell's team. Nigel came over and did IndyCar for a while, so people probably know him. But that was the team where he won his world championships with. Damon Hill won world championships. Nelson Piquet, Keke Rosberg. It's a history team, and they've got a chance of at least getting points realistically. But if Alex could get on the podium, that would make my season. I'd be happy. I'd stop watching after that. Be good to go.
Where is the race this week?
It's historic one in Spa in Belgium. Spa Florence.
Okay.
I can't remember. Can't say it properly, but yeah.
Okay.
So is that track on your wall back there, Ian?
It's known for for a corner called El Rouge, which is in a modern Formula One car is flat out. So they're accelerating 180 plus mile an hour, and it's a left, right, left corner. Just it's you got to have big cojones to go through there flat out. So it's pretty epic. But
yeah, and John, as you said, yes, behind him are all the racetracks for F1. So you got that.
I need
right.
a better background. I've got a fake background going today. Ian's got every Formula One track up there on his wall.
Right.
That's it. Spa is up there. Yeah, it's a wicked racetrack. So anyway, yeah, that's what we're watching this weekend.
Excellent.
Thank you, Josh. What you?
Well, I'm going to play some golf tomorrow for the first time in 2 years, so there's nothing really to talk about there, honestly.
Probably a nice cool day tomorrow, then, right?
I'd honestly rather talk about the data portal than my golf game.
Yeah, I'm with you there, mate. I'm with you there.
And getting into that, John, you being with us for 6 months now and jumping into our data portal, you probably didn't know a whole lot about this in the beginning. And so you've had to go just jump in it uh, full steam ahead into this data portal and be the person that's driving this for ePlan. So tell us about the data portal, what it is, and what our customers do with it.
Okay. I'm going to jump into the presentation if that's okay, and we'll
Sure.
talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So today we're Open Line Friday. We're going to talk about specifically on the data portal, how it can help you. I've got a brief agenda here. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview, and then we're going to spend most of the time today with Ian actually doing some demonstration of the data portal, what it looks like, how to do some basic things in it. We have a new ad for maybe 2 weeks ago. We released on eplan.com some sample data. So these are data components that were created based on feedback from our customers and our distributors. We've created that data. We have not necessarily gotten a contract with the vendor yet, but this is data that's available for our users to download and use in their project. Ian's going to give a little demonstration of that. And then also, if you find a piece of data or a component that's missing that you'd like to have added, Ian's going to show you what that data request process. All right. So ePlan is the global #1 engineering software for automation projects in the industrial automation workspace or ecosystem. A component of ePlan is the data portal. So I work for the Master Data Group, which oversees the data portal. It is a repository for high quality data for all engineering disciplines of industrial automation. So parts and pieces, cables, connectors, all types of data are housed in the data portal. And then that ties into the digital platform for you to be able to use and create panels. So in the data portal, a supplier or vendor supplies us with basic master data. So that's commercial data, it's part numbers, it's dimensions. We ask for a 3D file. We get documentation, so there'll be a link to the company's documentation for the component. And also we create a macro to use in our P8 product, which is for your single line drawings. Users then able to create a schematic with that in P8, and then ProPanel, they can create a digital twin or a 3D representation of the cabinet. They can then generate a parts list and production data. And we'll go a little bit more detail on that here in just a second. So several years ago, two or 3 years ago, Ian will have to correct me. I was before my time, but I think about 2 or 3 years ago, and came up with the EPLAN Data Standard. There were varying degrees of data or levels of data that were available on the portal. And, with the data standard, we tried to standardize things to have 3D engineering tool-based wiring, so you could use smart wire, and then smart wire could export to a wire termination machine, a WT machine, and then also semi-automated production, so you could export your panel design to a Perforex machine, for example, to cut out the holes in the panels. Some of the pains that our customers were experiencing were incorrect data or non-standardized data, and missing data, components that didn't have complete data. Just a couple of examples on some contactors here, Phoenix Contact, Weidmuller, and Awago. There were missing values. For example, the Phoenix Contact, well, none of these actually, or 2 of the 3, were not alignable, so you couldn't snap them in place when you're building your cabinet. And by using the data standard, we went back and got all those missing pieces of data filled in, and that gets you back to the data standard, up to the data standard rather, bringing those parts in. And the data standard includes basic master data, functional templates, 3D graphic data, drilling patterns, connection point patterns, logic macros. and it just cleans up the data, I guess is the best way to put it. Now in the data portal, Josh was talking a minute ago about how much it's grown. There's over $1.4 million components now included in the data portal. And of those components, we've got 870,000 that are EDS compliant parts. So the goal is to have all of them as EDS compliant. We're working towards that. But to have over half of them, 60% that are EDS compliant is a big help, because you don't have to go search for data and try to make corrections.
So what does that mean? What is that EDS? You say it's EDS compliant. Tell me what that means.
Ian, you want to help me out on that one?
EPLAN Data Standard. Try again. EPLAN Data Portal Standard. So it's there's our users will know for every component there are hundreds and hundreds of properties that could be associated with that component. Maybe simple ones from an electrical point of view might be its voltage. What voltage does it work on? What current does it have? And see, for a terminal, there are specific data like this regarding a terminal. Now, if you've got a power supply, these values don't apply for a power supply. There's a different set. So the data portal standard is separated by the types of components, and then for the particular type of components, like a terminal, we demand that as a minimum, this data is complete. So that would be obvious ones for all components might be the description, for example, and the manufacturer, the part number, and what have you. But for terminals, there'd be specific information that relate to being a terminal. Is it an alignable accessory, for example? If it's a relay, then maybe the coil voltage is a demanded standard. So this standard looks at making sure that the appropriate data for the part is included. So that's a concise enough description.
Does that help, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of times that we start talking about abbreviations for things, and we don't exactly explain what they are. So that's part of what I do.
I said it once and then it went straight to EDS. So.
I'm a guy that's in customer journey kind of marketing role. So for me, I have to understand what this is before I convey it. And I think that sometimes it's important for us, because we start rolling with things, and then I've been in situations where I'm like, yeah, I understand what that means. And then 5 or 6 months down the road, I'm like, I don't think I ever got a definition of what that actually is.
Right. Yeah. And I apologize. I learned years ago not to use TLAs, 3-letter acronyms.
Yeah.
You say it out.
But as Sarah, who is my boss, says, that we actually get paid for acronyms because we have so many of them. That the more acronyms in this business and what we do, the better off you are.
Oh, that's good.
That's why the auto companies must be so successful, because they love acronyms.
Yeah, exactly. All right, back to the EPLAN data portal. We 19 languages, 20 different sectors, 1.5 million downloads in June of 20. June of 22 is the last data I had on this slide. There is newer data, and over 450 manufacturers. And that's interesting. The growth of manufacturers that you were talking about a minute ago, Josh. From in the last 10 years, it's gone from 70 to 353.
Yeah, since I joined in 2017, I think we're towards the end of 2017, we were about 230. So between the 6 years that I've been here, we've doubled the amount of the number of
that's vendors. pretty steady growth. So
yeah, it is. Yeah,
my goal is to keep that growing, because the more data we get in there, the more it helps our customers.
Absolutely.
Now jumping on to the live demo.
My part.
I'm going to turn it over to Ian.
Okay. So I guess I should share my screen. Give me a second. Yeah. That one there.
That's new terminology in the last 5 years. How many times have you been in a meeting and say, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Only 3 times today so far.
Yeah, but again, 5 years ago, we weren't worried about that. We weren't sharing a lot
No,
on
exactly.
screen. We weren't using it as much. And then COVID comes around, and every meeting I have is, you can see my screen. And at this point, we have to know if people can see our screen or not, but we just want to make 100% sure.
Right.
Yep. So can you see my screen, Josh?
Yes.
Okay, so talk about the data portal specifically. So from within EPLAN, we access the data portal from the EPLAN cloud menu. So if I go back to this is the default menu, the home menu when you start EPLAN. You go to the EPLAN cloud, and the data portal you can see as part of the EPLAN cloud. You can access it by just going straight to the cloud. It will open the window, like a browser window within EPLAN. And you see you've got access to the various different parts of the EPLAN cloud. The data portal is here specifically. You can also access it directly from the menu by clicking the data portal. Either way, you end up at the same place. Excuse me. So the key thing about the data portal is it's a little bit like going shopping on Amazon, that you need to have an idea what it is you're looking for and a number of different ways of getting to the data. The most obvious way, if you know the part number, you might just be able to type the part number in. So as an example, 1769 would be Rockwell. So you see 1769 is used a lot, but as I scroll down, we can see the Allen Bradley parts or the Rockwell, yeah, because 1769 is their compact logic, is the device type for the compact logic. So I can search for a type number like that. I can narrow it down by selecting a particular manufacturer. So given I've searched for the number, now here's all the manufacturers out of the list of 400 and whatever it is that have a part with the number 1769 as part of their part number. We were looking for Allen Bradley information. When you're looking at these manufacturers, you'll see in some cases the manufacturer, as in this case here, Allen Bradley has got 2. So one is one of those, and typically, although not exclusively, it's going to be the one that has a multicolored icon. So we can see the Rockwell automation in that red color. This is going to be IEC data. So that's going to be millimeter-based data. And then we're going to see this data, and you can see it says Allen Bradley NFPA data. The important thing to remember is that it is also not just its NFPA data, it's inch-based data. So if you're working with NFPA, but in a millimeter environment, this is not what you want to download. You want to stick with the IEC data and then just rotate and flip any macros you have to make them work for you. This particular project I've got an inch-based project. So I'm going to select on this and select apply, and you can pick multiple out of all these manufacturers that have a part with that value in. So I selected apply. And so now it narrows down that list for anything with 1769 dash in the part number and Allen Bradley NFPA data specifically. So if I have a look at one of the pieces of data, so I'm going to pick this card here. This is a Pick one where I want to pick. So a high-speed counter, that may be a useful one, this high-speed counter. So if I select the particular part, we can see here what we would call a commercial data. So the manufacturer information, the type number, the order number, a brief description of what it is. Unfortunately, Rockwell in this instance only have the description in English. Many manufacturers will cover all 19 languages. We also see the other data types that are available. And if you're not familiar with these icons, if you click on the little information icon at the end, it tells you. So we've got commercial data, we've got a logic macro, so we can place it in our schematics. We have a function template that describes the functionality of the device in terms of what connection points it has. What connection point is the power, the communications, whatever it might be. We have a 2D graphic, which means if you're still using just electric P8 and doing 2D style layouts, then you've got data for that. But preferably you're going to be using ProPanel, in which case you have the 3D graphic data here. So that's the 3D model. As you can see, this one here that goes in the backplate layout in ProPanel. And to go with that, you have a drilling pattern. So we know how to physically mount it onto the panel and what holes it needs. So when you pass it to a Perfrex, the hole can be cut, or you can do a drilling pattern output, and the technician knows what size holes to drill and where to drill them in your panel. And then the connection point pattern. That's where in three-dimensional space, where do the connections come out of this device? So when we can route the wires in ProPanel. So that's what's available with this particular one. How many downloads, stuff like that. If we want to actually look at the macros, we can click on here, and here we see in the macro, we've got a multi-line variant. We've got an overview. We've got two different styles of overview. Typically, if you see a variant E, that's the type of graphical overview you would use when you're trying to display a PLC rack, for example. If you're doing the import from, in this case, Architecture Builder from Rockwell, it would place the variant E in your overview page to show your rack layout. Then we've also got, there's the part placement for the 2D. So that's what data is available. We can choose to download the part directly, or we can add it to a download list. So that's why I'd liken it to go and shopping at Amazon. You can add it to your download list, and it's going to add it into the list here. So I'm just going to select that, and we see it's added to the download list, and we see over here the download list has now one item in it. So you can continue shopping like that. When you're ready, you can go to your download list, and I'll just do this one. Select it and import it. If this was a device such as a contactor or a relay or something where there might be accessories, or even a PLC item where there's a separate terminal block that you need to use with an electronic module, then maybe you might get an accessory list. This item is a standalone, so there's no accessory list. You can also download the manufacturer's data. So that would be the phone number and the address and the information about the manufacturer themselves. I don't need to, I've already got that data. So I'm going to leave those two blank. And I can just select OK. It does the download, as you can see here, reasonably speedy. Obviously, that's dependent on your internet connection. And then once the files are downloaded, I select import. And that last part is, having downloaded the files, the last part is adding that part information to my parts database ready for me to use. Once I've downloaded them, I need to empty my shopping cart. So I'm going to remove all the items from my shopping cart. So that's one way of looking for data.
Let me ask you this real quick, Ian. So it showed that it had been downloaded 473 times. Well, after you just did that, that was 474 times. Why is that download history important? I mean, you see that the first thing that's on your screen right now from Rata, it looks like it's been downloaded over almost 110,000 times.
Yeah.
Why is that important? Or is it just to give like historical data of the part?
I think mainly it's for historical data. I would argue that perhaps it does tell you if something's not been downloaded very often, it's not used quite so much. Obviously, with the allowance that some of these things are quite regional. So Rockwell is a massive player in the North American market, but maybe less so in, say, Germany or in maybe China or whatever. So actually, China doesn't count, I don't believe, because they have a separate data portal because of the Great Wall of China internet thing. But yeah, so it may be related to that. But yes, it's mainly historic data. So that's one way of.
I think John was trying to say something, but he's
Yeah,
muted.
sorry, I was muted there. It does allow us to give feedback to our vendors. Here's the most downloaded parts. So they get some information on what region they're downloading. And we can't tell them who downloads it, but we can tell them this many were downloaded in the US, this many were downloaded in Europe, different regions such as that.
Okay.
I didn't know that, so that's cool. So yeah, that's one way of looking for parts. You may want to browse a specific manufacturer to look for parts, and again, I can go and select. And now, because I've got no part number, I'm looking at all the manufacturers that are available to me, and so I can scroll down as you see all the manufacturers, and you'll see, for example, Grace Technologies. They have both IEC style and NFPA inch data. And lots and lots of different manufacturers, as you can see. Again, I will stress that if you're using millimeters, then avoid downloading the NFPA data because that's going to be inches and it's not going to work very well for you. You should download the IEC data and manipulate the macro to make it look as you require.
And you can filter that too. It looks like that on if you exit out of the manufacturers. You can just do IEC or NFPA like that so that you don't make that mistake.
Yep, that definitely is a big help.
And I'll tell just one thing I'm going to jump in, Ian. You've brought it up a couple of times, the IEC versus NFPA data. We've had a big push from US customers requesting NFPA data. So we're working with our vendors to try to get their data, for years it had just been IEC data. So now we're getting them converted over to NFPA data. We've got an initiative to try to bring in new NFPA data, and that's something Ian's going to show you on the sample data here a little bit later.
Yeah, I keep stressing it, John, and it's important. It's inch data is the key.
Okay.
We call it NFPA data, but
right
because it is in that style, but it's inch data, and it's really important for people that maybe they're using fluids as well. Typically, all the fluid equipment is all millimeter based. I mean, generally the rest of the world is millimeter based. Mm-hmm. So
well, look, whenever I was in school in the 80s, they said that millimeters and centimeters are going to be the wave of the future. You're going to go all to the metric system, and it's going to happen, and you don't have a choice. So forget all about this inch and foot. And Americans were like, nah. Apparently
we're stubborn.
We don't want to do all that.
We in America still want inch data.
I always make fun. It's because it's interesting. I mean, historically, the unit inch and feet is from the UK, from England. The inch was originally so many corns of barley or something like that. It was a really how an inch became to be an inch. But obviously, the reason it's over here is because the immigration of people from England when before America was founded. Mm-hmm. But the irony is we've given up on it. We realized it's a crazy dimension. Who wants to work in base 12? So we've gone metric, and we went, when I was a kid, our currency was base 12. There was 144 pennies in a pound at one point.
Oh, wow.
So that's, I mean, you know, as a kid, that's way too much complicated to work that stuff out. So yeah, we went metric in, I think, 72 for currency, and probably about roughly 30 years ago, I can't remember, it's in the in the 90s sometime, we converted to all the measurements. You know, we buy gasoline in liters now. We buy,
But you still use miles per hour, correct?
Sorry, say again.
Still use miles per hour though, correct?
Yeah, and there's a couple of things. Miles per hour, because I think probably it would the cost of changing all the signs,
right,
to be kilometers, and you know, all the road signs to say how far towns are would be just crazy. Okay. So we didn't do that, and we still buy a proper pint of beer, which I hasten to add is not 16 ounces. A proper pint of beer is 20 ounces.
Right.
So, do you still sell your eggs in dozen?
Yes, but they're
So
not.
You're still going base 12 for some things.
Yeah. I forgot about that one. They're not refrigerated either.
No, that's correct.
That's a different thing. But
my wife's from the UK, and you walk in the grocery store, and they're sitting on a shelf next to the bread. It blew my mind the first time I saw it. So.
Yeah, there's we eradicated salmonella, so you don't need to wash them. It's not on the outside of the eggs, so it's not necessary. But yeah, another interesting thing, the one unit where inch is used all over the world is a television set.
Really?
Yeah, a 40-inch TV.
Did not know that.
Yeah, in Germany they buy a 40-inch TV, bizarrely. Anyway, slightly off topic. I guess we should
digress.
That's my fault. My fault. Sorry, guys.
Josh, you've done it again. Anyway, where was I? So yes, when you're looking for the data, if you're using millimeter, I keep stressing this, it's my preferred one because it gives you more access to things like the fluids. It makes it less complicated to do, you know, pneumatics and hydraulics because of all the symbol sets that are believed to a DIN standard, which is obviously metric. And it's not a big deal to take an IEC macro and move it. The other thing, if a particular part, for example, a contactor, just is going to use symbols, then it doesn't matter whether you pick the NFPA or the IEC, they're both the same, because EPLAN works out the correct symbol to place when you put a contactor, a push button, or a circuit breaker in. For things like that, it doesn't matter. So stick with the IEC for predominantly if you're doing millimeter work. Anyway, so yeah, we can once we pick on a device, as Josh said, and again I'll use that I use 7034 as an example now. So we've got 1734, we've got a mix. I can pick to have any. I've got all sorts of things I can pick. IEC only, it should filter out the NFPA ones, and then NFPA only, and it should filter out the IEC ones.
Hey, Ian, go back to any, if you don't mind, just for a second.
Yeah.
How do you know if it's meets the EPLAN Data Standard, or EDS as I called it earlier?
Yep, that's a good point, because it has that there.
Oh, a fancy logo.
Fancy logo, EPLAN Data Standard. As you see, Rockwell haven't caught up yet. Unfortunately, they're not.
They are working on it. I can tell.
They're working on it, yeah. And the fact that it's not there doesn't necessarily mean the data is bad. I wouldn't, please.
No, it does not.
Don't think of it that. It's just that it hasn't been tested against the standard.
That's correct.
Chances are, because certainly from a PLC standpoint, the Rockwell macros are very good, and the data is very good, I should say. We're all artists, so we all can criticize the way the macro looks like, because we all want it to look at our own particular way. But the data is generally very good from that respect. So yeah, that's how you can search. Another way would be to actually we can use their catalogs. So I'm going to get rid of this, looking at everything now. And this is the classification. So we can use the E-class classification. So E-class is a standard. It originates out of Europe, and it's been adopted by a massive amount of manufacturers. And you can use 4 codes to classify pretty much anything from a push button to an automobile. This group, this organization has the classifications, and using 4 different numbered codes, you can use that. And we can actually, if you've got E-class data for a component, E-plans, if you supply the E-class data and a step file, we can create the data portal data just from that data. That's how in-depth that E-class thing does. I'm going to look at the E-plan product groups because it's going to be more familiar to most people over here. So we can look the product groups in terms of when you're looking in your parts database, you'll recognize the same categories. Electrical engineering. Then we can say, are we looking for heaters, inductors, miscellaneous devices, whatever the devices might be, maybe motors. I'm going to look for relays and contactors as an example. I'm going to look at contactors, and we're looking at across the whole all the manufacturers who makes contactors. So there's 62,000. So now I can see them from Siemens, from SE would be Schneider Electric. They'll be from all sorts of different manufacturers. So I can search through, and there's 999 plus pages to jump through. So I can then go shopping for contactors on that basis. And then I could also say, well, who does NFPA data for those contactors? So here you see it's not changed because it doesn't matter. It's a contactor. It doesn't come with a macro. It just comes with function information. And then I can also then filter. It's important for me that I have 3D graphic data. So who does that? So using these different filters, using the manufacturers, the catalog information, you can help narrow down what you want. Without laboring the point, the last thing I'm going to look at, so let's clear everything, is the selectors. So there's loads of different manufacturers that have selectors. We see some from Siemens, from Rittel themselves in terms of thermal selector. The one I like, because I'm reasonably familiar with it, is this Endress+Hauser. So Endress+Hauser is a manufacturer of meters, flow devices, primarily. So measurement units that will measure the flow in a pipe. So you can see most of these items, they clamp onto different styles of pipe. And if you're picking a particular style, so there's a basic series, and you can pick if this is a series of device you want, you go to the screwdriver icon, and it tells me we're going to go somewhere else to look at this data. And it takes me to the Endress+Hauser configuration page. So there's a big view. This is an electromatic flow meter. And I then get to fill the part number in by deciding the different properties of this. So the liner of the pipe, it's going to be PTFE. So that gives me the Q code. So then I go to the process connector. What style of connector is it? And I just randomly pick in there.
And Ian, that's not something we've built. That's something where we're just connected to the Endress+Hauser configurator on their website.
I believe in many cases we sort of it's a collaboration. The link between there is a joint work, obviously between them because they know their components.
Correct.
And EPLAN to provide that link.
But this is actually their configurator. It's not our, it's not
Yes,
something we.
yeah, but it interacts with our data then to provide the right information. So
Right.
you can go through all the thing, and you can, when you fill out all the different parts, once you've done, then you can download that specific part. So
so whenever you do it like this, it's not necessarily, whenever you're looking at it in the data portal, it's not going to have that EPLAN data portal certified, because you're having to go in here and configure it from there.
Yeah, I did. I'll be honest, I didn't notice, but you may be right. Let's
yeah.
If I click on it.
Because if you're having to configure it, there's nothing to really give a certification from if you're configuring it yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Let's go back and just go to those selectors.
And this isn't the, that company isn't the only company that does this either. We have other configurators.
Oh yeah,
That's
Schneider Electric, for example, again, takes you direct to the Schneider plant. One of the companies, Festo, for example, you can do it actually direct through their website, and they've got tools, and they don't send you a part; they'll send you a whole project based on the configuration of a valve pack. Wow. So yeah, loads of different tools to do that, to configure. The Rittal panel one allows you to pick a panel and actually put cutouts in before you build it. So I won't carry on with that too much, just so we've got some time to get to the other stuff, because we've been talking away way long. So
well, it's great information though.
Yeah, oh yeah, it really is. For sure. So I want to just show you when you download a part as an example, and I picked a Rittal part as an example, what that brings to you. So I downloaded a Rittal part earlier, and this is the part that I downloaded. It's a thermostat that would be inside your cabinet to control a fan or a cooler, or maybe a heater if you've got to keep the cabinet warm rather than cold. I found it in my insert center, as we see here. It's actually in the actual parts database. I'm going to show you how you might then use it. So once it's in the parts database, it will appear in your insert center. I actually searched for the part to make it easy to find. I could navigate. Get rid of that. I can navigate through the devices, and we see those same categories: electrical engineering, component, and then here's the categories. Obviously, since I know what I want to look for, I can search for it directly. Makes it much faster. If I drag the part in, this is an example of the macro that comes with this. So it shows what the connection details are. I'm just going to place it. So it identifies the connection points, the live and the neutral connection points for this device. These are probably not connected in this case. And is it going to be heating or cooling, depending on how you want it? If the temperature is above value set on the dial, the cooling will come on. If it's below the amount set, then the heating will come on. So that's how this works. We talked about the additional files that it come with, image files and macros and that. So there's an example. When I go to my part, there's the image file. So I've got a picture of what it looks like. But then I've also got data that that gets downloaded. Some companies actually will give you a PDF of a data sheet, or other companies may give you a hyperlink to the data sheet on their website. Rittal is one of those companies that does that. So if I right click here, I can look at the open hyperlink. I see I can open the image file, but I can also look, as you see, Rittal cover looks to be close to the 19 languages. I'm not going to count them, but from English, Turkish, Russian, all sorts of different languages you can see here. I'm going to obviously pick the English one. So I click on the data sheet here. It takes me straight to the Rittal site, and here's the data sheet for that particular device. So that's something you could download if you wanted to give it to your customer, or you can actually, if you do bill of materials, you can actually include that hyperlink in your bill of materials, so your customer can go and access the cut sheet or the data sheet for that device. So that's the sort of data that's available. So we talked about standard data from the data portal. John also mentioned that there's been an initiative working primarily, I believe, with some of the distributors that we work with, to give us a list of components they believe their customers use a lot. So they obviously have data about who buys what, and we use that data as a company to generate some inch-based data, inch NFPA-based data, for companies that are not necessarily on the data portal. Companies we are working with are trying to get them interested to come on the data portal, or John is, but companies that are not currently there, but we get a lot of requests from through the distributors.
And just to add to that, Ian, we are pulling some data from existing vendors that we have in the portal. It's just parts that our distributors are selling that are not currently available, or it's maybe parts that EPLAN, customers have told the distributor, hey, we need to get this part. So some of the parts we're creating are with existing vendors.
Okay.
So how long does it take to get that part data in, though? I mean, from the time of the contact that you have and the time that it comes into the data portal, and then whenever you have you check the standards, what's that turnaround time look like?
Well, to be honest, it varies at the moment. It's a pilot program at the moment. We've just released the data about 2 weeks ago, the first set of data. We're working through it. So stay tuned. I can give you a better answer maybe in a few months.
Okay.
The thing that Ian's about to show you is the sample data. And every registered EPLAN user should have received an email from EPLAN a week or so ago, provided that they said we were able to contact them. You can opt out of that when you first sign up. But every user that said we could contact them got an email with a link to this site that Ian's going to show you. And we're really asking for feedback. So if you like it, if you don't like it, let us know both. These are data points that may not have everything that needs to be in the EPLAN Data Standard yet, but some of them do. We're just this has been pulled from publicly available information. So our EPLAN team is going in and looking, on the company website and pulling data. If they can get a 3D drawing, they've got that. So varying levels of data, but it's exciting to have this start on this, and it allows us to go back to existing vendors and new vendors, potential vendors, to convince them that there are customers looking for their data.
It's important to know, though, how to get to this. And you have to know that when you go to eplan.com, it's behind the login. So if you're looking on EPLAN USA, you're probably not going to find it there. If you're looking to find it without being a user, that's not going to be possible. But it's very simple to just be a user for eplan.com. You sign up there, and you can become a user and have access to a lot of information like that.
Yeah,
correct.
This particular one, though, is there's a particular link that you need to be set. You can't find it direct from the eCloud or from EPLANUSA.com or EPLAN.com. You need this particular link to allow you to get there. There's no link within the EPLAN.com website to navigate to it. So this is very specific.
Yeah, as I said a minute ago, there was an email sent. If you did not get that, or if you've signed up since then, ask your EPLAN salesperson. They can get you a link to it.
Yeah, and I think I can magically put on the YouTube what that link might be.
That'd be excellent. I can get that to you.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
thanks,
I'll
Josh.
carry on, Ian. Sorry about that.
Yeah, once you have that link, I've actually stored it as a shortcut here on my bar. You go to this sample data for the USA, as it says here. And it says, the data portal is a primary source for the data portal. This is where the portal data is checked. There's data that's to the EDS standard. It's high quality access. However, to give you access to manufacturers, as John said, aren't necessarily on the data portal yet, or maybe come into the data portal, although we're working with, we have you the ability to download the parts. So if we scroll down, we can see the sort of parts that are available. Now, interestingly, you don't get to pick individual parts. You have to pick all the parts that we have for a particular manufacturer, and you get everything that has been created on for that particular manufacturer. Again, it's not going to be all the parts that the manufacturer has, just the ones that the distributors said are the commonly used parts. When you pick a particular manufacturer and do a download, I did it earlier, so I don't have to sit and you don't have to sit and wait for a download, watching my my wheel spin while it downloads. So when you get a download, what you end up with, well, if I can bring my navigator over here. So I downloaded the ProSoft sample part. So this one, I picked this one. It's 252 megs. And included in that, so it's a zip file. I've unpacked the zip file into the downloads, just again to save time. You get 3 parts, three files. You get an Excel file. Of course, it's going to pop up on my other screen. This is actually an export from the EPLAN parts database once the data has been added in. So it lists information about the manufacturer, what the part is, the various different properties and what have you that are in there. So just a basic list, so you can have a quick look and see, is the part that I want covered by this? You then also get an EDZ file. So for those of you that are not familiar, the EDC file is a EPLAN Data Portal zip. That's what it stands for. And with that file, you go into the master data in your EPLAN. You'll go to the management of the parts. So here's my parts database. You'll go to the extras and select import. And then you go and find that file, making sure that you pick that it's the right format, the EDZ format. And go and find the file, and you should pick update existing records and add new ones. Chances are they're all going to be new ones, so the existing record is sort of incidental. So once you do that, it'll bring in, for the particular parts, which I've already done, so you don't have to wait, all the parts from that particular manufacturer that you've downloaded. So I can look at those, for example, and I think it was PRS. I'm going to search for the manufacturer's code. So we can see here the source of data that's available. So we've got some prefabricated cables. What's in general items, a wireless adapter of some description, logic items, unit of various descriptions. Those who are familiar with ProSoft will recognize some of these. There's some PLC items. They make PLC cards to go with other manufacturers. So this, for example, is a card that would go on a Point.io or a control, compact logics, I believe, for example. So this is a Modbus serial. So you see, you've got a lot of the same data. We got the image file, we got macros that go with this device. Once you've imported the data, then you can go and search for the data. Knock my mouse over, let's try again. Again, you could do the same. You could navigate. Let's get rid of that. I can navigate through devices and go through the various items, or I could search for those that particular manufacturer. We see the different items. For example, here's a 485 converter. So probably 485 to Ethernet, I would imagine. It's yeah, router. So here's an example of the macro that comes. So you've got some power connections, plus and minus power connections, and then the 485 connections. Those are from they're still familiar with using RS485 or 232. Will recognize the names of the receive and the transmit connections, and then the output, which I would imagine is to Ethernet. So that's an example of the sort of macros you get. If I try and remember what the name of this particular part is, I'm gonna
Copy it.
I'm gonna copy it because my brain's like a sieve and I'll never remember. So what you also get is the macro project that our engineers use to create these macros from. So that is the ZW1 file, this one here. So if you open the idea of giving you that is that you can take what we've got and maybe you don't like the way it looks, you don't like where the text is, you want the connections closer together, further together apart, whatever it might be. You might want it to look different. So we give you the macro data. And obviously, I've got to go and find that one, and I've already forgotten what the name of the part was. ADH something. So, and as you see, the way these are, oh, there it is, it's that one there. The way these are structured in the ZW1 file, the project that we give you, it uses, again, EPLAN parts macros would be one part of the function or one part of the structure. Then the plus part structure, we've used that to identify the various categories within the EPLAN product group. So obviously in the EPLAN parts database, you've got electrical engineering, then you've got transmission paths, and then under transmission paths general. So that's where the structure comes from there. Then the manufacturer's name, we've used the plus structure to manufacturer's name, and we just use the code here. And then finally, we've used the user structure for the part number. So for this part number, we can see it's just got one macro. It's a multi-line macro and it's the router. So let's have a quick look at that. And there we see that's where that macro was created from. So if you decided you want to modify it to make it look something different, you've got the ability to modify it from here. So maybe if you wanted the text to be on the top, for example, and say I want it on the top center outside, top center. So I want that to be the default. So I make it simple. Then I can save this macro, master data, generate automatically. So let's put it in the right place. Obviously, I do need to do an update. Let's get rid of that one. Okay. And then I could bring it back in and find it. As you see now, the text comes by default the way I would like it. So you can use that. Ignore the fact it was magenta in the macro project and it's blue here. That. The reason that's just down to the setup in my particular project that uses blue for that particular layer rather than magenta for the layer here in the macro project. That's the only reason that's different.
Well, and thank you, Ian. Josh, the ultimate goal of the master data team or data portal team is to never have a customer come in and need a part and it not be there.
Right.
It's a work in progress. If we were there today, I wouldn't have a job. So. Right. But that is the goal. If we can, the more parts we can get in, you don't have to have every single part on the planet in there, but every part that a customer is going to use, we'd love to have in the data portal. We're working towards that. This is kind of a stopgap measure to help us get more data in based on, and Ian talked about it too. Our distributors, we asked them for lists of parts that they sell. We base this on, quantities sold in the last year by those distributors of what to start pulling in. So we're adding data. We've got 10 manufacturers on there today. In another month, we'll have, I don't know the number, another 10 or 15 added. We're going to continue to add data. And ultimately the goal is to migrate that data over to the data portal itself, because that is the standard, the repository for the data. This is, as I say, kind of a stopgap measure to get us there and get more data in.
And these manufacturers don't stop making parts. I mean, that's
Correct.
That's the whole purpose, that you have parts that are being manufactured all the time that you need that data for. So you're
Right.
keeping up with not only the ones that we don't have, but those ones that are just coming out.
Oh, correct. Yes. And I'm working with vendors now, existing vendors that we have, and my counterparts around the world are to add new parts as they come on board. So as they develop a new part, and some vendors, we create the data for them. Some vendors create it themselves. It just depends. Allen Bradley has a team that's they create their own data and upload it. One other thing, Ian, if you don't find the part in the data portal and you don't find it in the sample data, what can you do?
Okay. So unfortunately, my camera's decided to die. Got fed up of looking at me, like probably you guys. So save you the trouble. So, and this part is really important, John, for a couple of reasons. So one thing I am going to look at is not just you go to the data portal. It's been a long time since I've done this, but I remember where to go find it. Maybe it gave up because I've got internet connection issues. Oh, there we go. Okay. So we've got a part request here. So if you've got a particular part that is not on the data portal, for a manufacturer that already has parts on the data portal, then you can go and request from that manufacturer. So you pick, obviously, from the list of manufacturers. For example, Rockwell is going to be there somewhere. I assume it would be under R for Rockwell. Maybe I'm wrong. No, it must be Allen Bradley then.
I think it's under Allen Bradley.
Oh, there. A minute.
Yeah.
So you select what type of device it is. It's a PLC type device. Whether it's a specific part or a range of parts. So, for example, the product range for Rockwell, maybe you want the new Flex IO 5000, or so you might pick a range, or it's an individual part that's part of an existing range, just a specific part. And then you go through and you request it, and that goes through EPLAN onto the team, in this case, the team at Rockwell.
Right.
It's important to do that.
So that's just when you go into the data portal, that is one of the icons over on the left. It's part request. You can't find the part. If you searched the way Ian showed, searching by manufacturer, searching by part number, you can't find it. You can go to that parts request and request that of the manufacturer. And then
that's super simple.
Absolutely. The one other thing I would point out. So that's one way of effectively giving the manufacturers, the Rockwells and Siemens of this world, some feedback on what it is that you're using. I would also encourage people to give feedback on parts that are there if they find any errors in the data.
Yes.
So that's really important, and you can do that by picking a particular part. I'm picking on Rockwell because I know the parts very well, not particularly for any other reason. But if I pick particular, say, a Rockwell part, if I download the data and I find, well, it's not there was an accessory missing, or the information about the part was incorrect, I can select here and I can add feedback, and it's very similar form, other than the fact it fills some of the information already because it picks the part, and you can feedback on what type of error it is. There's data missing, was the data wrong, or is it just general feedback? So I would encourage people to do that. Obviously, some manufacturers are more responsive than the others. The one, I'll give you a good example. I was working with a customer in the Detroit area, and they had cables from the lap cable company, and the data was incorrect. It was a 24-core cable, and in that 24-core cable, there were 23 blue cores, one blue and white core, and one green and yellow core, typical 24-volt control cable.
Right.
In the data, it labeled the cores, the blue cores, 1 through 23. Core 24 was the blue and white one, and you don't have a core number for the ground, the green and yellow. Well, that's incorrect. Core
Right.
1 and core 3 through 24 are the blue ones. So we did this, reported an error with the data, and that was at sort of 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon before we left. We instantly got an email back from EPLAN saying, yeah, we've received the information, we're going to pass it on to lap cables. By the time I got back in the morning and logged on, I had three emails from a gentleman at lap cable in Germany. The first one said, yeah, thanks for the information, we're taking a look. The second one said, oh yeah, you're quite right, the data's wrong, and it's a couple of other cables have got the wrong data. It's an error in our spreadsheet. And then the third one was, we've updated the data, we've sent it to EPLAN, and it will be available at the next upload. So some of the manufacturers are very, very responsive.
Right.
I'd encourage you, if you don't get a response, maybe call your account manager, maybe call one of the consultants that you've worked with, or maybe call John.
Or me, yeah.
We like to know
The
this.
easiest is your account manager, they'll get with me. But if you, and maybe Josh, you can put our contact information in there at the end.
Sure, just don't contact me because I have no idea.
Yeah, you're wasting your time.
Well, I'm going to pass the information on too, Josh. So
Yeah, I will put your contact information in the YouTube for everyone to be able to contact you.
right.
I
So
can put your home
that's
address.
kind of just to recap, we did a high level overview of the data portal, and then Ian did a more in-depth demonstration of data portal, the new sample data, which again, if you don't have that link, I think post-production is going to put that in, Josh.
Yep.
So you'll have that link to that data, and then how to request parts via the EDP request process. EPLAN Data Portal, EDP.
Yeah, definitely. Last word. Give us feedback, whether it's to the manufacturer, to us. We can't make it better if we don't know. And
thanks for reminding me of that too. One other thing, Ian, I meant to say this a minute ago when you were talking about feedback. We don't have a link on the sample data page yet for feedback, but I'm working with the team that manages that website to work on that. So hopefully we'll have that shortly. In the meantime, come to me, come to your salesperson with any feedback you've got, positive or negative. We want it all. But shortly we should have a way to give direct feedback on the website.
Excellent.
Josh, I think that's all we've got today.
Man, that's so much information, but it's great because it's very comprehensive about the data portal, how to use it, how to find information, what information you get, and it's actually more than I could have wished for from this Open Line Friday. So, John, I thank you so much. In 6 months, you've learned a lot more than I have about EPLAN.
I've got a lot more to learn.
Ian, as always, thank you, my brother, and have a good time this weekend watching the races. And we'll see you. We'll see you for the next Open Line Friday. That should be revealed very soon. Who's going to be on that one? So we'll see you for that next one. Have a great week.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks guys. Have a great weekend.
Great weekend.
Cheers. Bye.